This is a series where we explore and experiment with exciting smart home devices and interesting tech. And hopefully, somewhere along the way, we create something too cool for words. This is the Home Assistant AI Masterclass. What's good, y'all? So we're going to merge ChatGPT into our automations in a way that I've yet to see anywhere. Now, I'm going to warn you up front though. We will be using Node-RED and there will be a little bit of coding. However, I'll hold your hand through the entire process because I think you're going to want to see what comes out at the end of this. And I think it's going to blow your mind. It blew my mind. So I want to make sure that you get there. For those of you seeing this series for the first time, I strongly but politely ask that you go and watch this video's predecessors. It will make a lot more sense seeing the other stuff, but just in case you don't want to, and for those of you who probably forgot, here's a quick recap. The purpose of this series is to create an AI chatbot that's capable of basically controlling your smart home. Now, as Home Assistant team works on increasing Home Assistant's assist capabilities, we're going to be jumping several steps ahead by integrating GPT-3 into our smart home in a way that's quite frankly terrifying. And we're going to do this by leveraging Telegram, which is a free messaging app, and we're going to use it as the base for our chatbot. So episode 1 of this series shows you how to create a Telegram bot and connect it to send and receive messages to and from Home Assistant. That's basically it. Okay, so now that you're basically caught up, let's install GPT, but not in the way that you're thinking. Now, before you can install GPT-3, you'll need to sign up to OpenAPI. Once you're in, go to the View API keys and generate a new token and save this information in a secure spot because you're going to need it again. Next, go to the playground. Click on View Code. Change the library from Python or from whatever it is to Node.js. You're going to want to click copy and close. All right, now let's head over into Home Assistant. In Home Assistant, let's find the function node. So we can just type in function, drag it out. We're going to just call this OpenAI. In the setup tab, we're going to go and click on add, and we're going to say OpenAI. Just add this in. This is basically going to install the necessary module that you need. Under message, we're going to paste what we copied from the playground. Okay, so something that you're going to notice here is that we have this process.env. You're going to want to place that API key that you copied earlier here. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to do that here. I have a different one that's stored elsewhere, so I'll just add that in here momentarily. Okay, so there's a few changes that you'd want to know. First change is this. I have mine stored in a global property. You don't need to do this because this is just your machine and you shouldn't be sharing this with anybody. You can just add your key directly here. It'll be like just add some double quotes, put your key in there, just paste it in, and you should be good to go. The next thing you're going to see here is that we've changed this to, well, this should be the same. It's OpenAI API passing the configuration. So we're basically creating this object here. And then this should remain mostly the same. The big difference that you're going to notice here is this message.prompt. I've replaced that string with the message.prompt. What this will do is it's going to go and dynamically pass in the prompt from whatever previous node that comes before this. Another thing that I did is I just removed the whole await that was there from before, and I'm just replacing it with the old school promise nomenclature, which is a dot then. We have this answer, and we're going to save this answer to message.answer. And then to ensure that this function node sends this information on to the next node, we're going to use node.send and then pass in message. And then to ensure that this node cleans up and stops, we're going to use node.done and open close parentheses. So you can just copy what you see here and you should be good to go. Remember, you use your API key and not that. Oh, and one more thing. Because we're making an asynchronous call to OpenAI's servers, we need to make sure that on line 24, that return is empty, so that way this node will wait for the response to come back. Okay, so now that we have the OpenAI node, let's connect it to our existing automation and see if we can get this talking to our chatbot. Now, Currently, this call service node we don't need right now. This is responsible for making actions within our smart home. Right now, we simply just want to get answers back from ChatGPT. So we're going to disconnect this part. We're going to disconnect this part. Eventually, we're going to end up connecting OpenAI directly to this respond node, which is responsible for sending information back to Telegram. Now, to test things out, I want to connect OpenAI to the debugger. I'm going to make sure that the debugger is set to complete message object so we can see everything. And I'm going to set this one here like that. And this property is having prompt, so we're good here, just to make sure. This is set to prompt, so we're good here. And just so you know that when we get an answer back, it's going to be sent to this message.answer property, and it's going to be sent to our debugger. So we're going to be looking at that message.answer to see what's going on. So let's press deploy. When we check the side panel, we can see here that we got a new message. And now, as we mentioned in answer, we can see that there's data, choices for this object. The sky's usually blue. Perfect. This is the answer that we want. But I can see that this text comes a bit formatted. We want to remove a lot of this stuff and make sure that the text is as simple and as plain as possible, so that way it doesn't mess up the formatting within Telegram. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new node to just sanitize the response. So let's go over to function. We'll connect it right here. We'll call this sanitize response. And then what we want to do is we want to grab this text. So we're going to click on this copy path button. We're going to set this to a new variable called msg.gpt answer is equal to. So this is the path that I just pasted from here. We need to add the MSG in front. So this is the variable that we were looking for, or this is the value that we're looking for. Since this is JavaScript, what we can do is we can say dot replace all. And this simply, to move this to a new line, this is going to remove all of that new line character that we see at the front. And then for good measure, we're going to say dot trim, which is going to remove any extra spaces from the beginning and end of the sentence. So what we see here now is that we're going to go and take this text here. We're going to format it by removing all of the new lines and the spaces, and we're going to put that answer into GPT answer. And then we're going to send it off to the debugger just to make sure that everything is okay. We'll ask it the question. Awesome. And then when we check the payload, GPT answer, ooh, it says undefined, grass is typically green. We missed something. That's what. I'm supposed to, it was missing this particular property. We're replacing all of that new lines with empty spaces, or just an empty string. Let's try it one more time. Perfect. Grass is typically green in color. Now we know this is working. We can now connect this into respond. Make sure that respond is looking at GPT answer. So let's see. Look at that. Just so you know, there's apps out there that says that it allows you to talk to GPT. We've just created that by ourselves. Currently, we can ask GPT any question and get similar results like what we would see on OpenAI's Playground, but I think we can do a little better. Our chatbot should know how to answer questions about our smart home. At least I would think that our chatbot should know how to do that. And technically we can accomplish this, but do you remember by any chance what I told you back in the previous video? Especially around what I thought the best part of GPT was?
Now, together, users can engage ChatGPT to answer trivia, solve problems, and really excitingly, get contextual information based off of given data.
Yeah, so if we give it information about our smart home, GPT should be able to answer it. Okay, so this is where the fun begins. Now, we're going to pass Home Assistant basically information about our system and use that as a way to ask it questions. Now, to do this, we need to basically gather all of the entities that are important to us. That's going to be done with this node right here called the get entities. Now, I already set all of this up from before, so I'm going to put the final-ish copy on here, and we're going to step through it and talk about it. Okay, so here we go. I've deleted the OpenAI and the sanitize node, and I've basically added it here. We're going to walk through this, and I'm going to explain how this works. You're going to see how this magic happens. Now, this get entities that I mentioned from before is responsible for gathering all of the entities within Home Assistant. All of them. So what this property will do is we're basically saying for the property entity ID, if it's not undefined, basically give it to me and pass it to me as an array. Now, what this will look like is going to turn out to be in the payload, you're going to see a long list of all of the IDs. Here's an example of what that looks like. I'm going to add a debugger to this so we can see what this looks like every step of the way. So we're just going to connect this entities to that one. We're going to connect it to this timestamp. We're going to just disconnect that for a moment. And all this is going to do is we're going to just trigger this by itself. Fire. 43. So here's ours. Remember, it's going to go into payload. I have 416 different entities within my Home Assistant platform. This is my ES Presence. This is that ES Presence entity. Here's an entity for Home Assistant visor update. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. There's no way I can check what all of these are, but essentially every entity that's within my system I have access to. And this is too much. I don't want to give GPT all of this information. I just want to give it the important information. So we're going to have to filter through this. So then let's look at this next node right here. So matter of fact, so here in filter for specific entities, we have this payload. We have all 416 elements. And what we're doing is that I'm creating a filter called light dot. Because if you notice, a lot of our entities basically look like something dot something else. And typically, whenever we install lights, it starts with light dot and then the name of whatever that light is or whatever we've kind of attributed as. To put it very simply, all this is going to do is it's going to go through each of the elements within the payload. It's going to check to see if it has this dot light. If it does, then what it's going to do is we're basically going to say, hey, I want the friendly name. I'm going to save that. I want to save the entity ID and put that into another variable. And then if it can show, i.e. if it does have this dot light, then we're going to create a new object based off of the friendly name. And we're going to basically have within that object the state of the object. So whether it's off or on or whatever that state is, we're going to give it also the ID as well as the name and make this a little bit easier to read. What we're doing is we're taking something that's very complicated and we're making it very, very simple. It's going to be stored into this property called entities. This is the output after running it. So you can see the correlation. This is when everything runs, and this is what aggregates everything together to give you the output that you see here. Right now we have aggregate name, which is that name, as we mentioned, is the pretty name or the friendly name. We have desk light. Within this object, we have the state, ID, and name. And as you can see here, within the objects, we have the state, which is on, ID, which is the entity ID, and the name. And I put the name back in there just for convenience. You'll see why soon. But this filter essentially allows us to only grab the things that we want, and it formats it in a way that is understandable and very easy to read and easy to work with. I don't just have lights on in the house, right? I have other entities as well. So for instance, if I wanted to include, like, let's say the alarms in the house or other sensors in the house, I would simply need to just update this filter to include those things that I know are listed that I'm interested in. So, for instance, if I know that all of my ring alarms start with sensor dot ring dot whatever, then I would add that into this array, just saying sensor dot ring dot, and then I can leave it at that. And what it's going to do is anything that starts with this, it will also include in that list. Now, this, what you have here is going to vary for everyone. This is what my stuff may be named a certain way, your stuff may be named differently, but whatever works or for your system, you can just add that particular criteria here, and this should be able to filter it. Or if you're comfortable with JavaScript, you can use what's it called? You can use regular expressions in order to figure this out as well. Like the sky's the limit. Because this is JavaScript, you can filter however you're capable of doing. Now, the template is basically what I'm calling the thing that we send GPT in order to answer questions. So inside this, we can see that we're grabbing the entities, which is what we have here on the right-hand side, and the prompt. The prompt is, if you remember, the message that comes from Telegram. The message that we type to our chatbot, that's the prompt. Now, all this part is doing is it's basically going through each of these items and it's creating a very pretty sentence. That sentence is going to say something like, for instance, if we look at desk light, it's going to say desk light has the entity ID of light.desklight and is currently on. So that's all this is doing. We're creating a bunch of sentences that basically tells about the state of each of these. And then we have this template here, and the template starts off as this smart home named K is powered by Home Assistant. An overview of the areas and the devices in the smart home, and then we're going to list out all of those pretty sentences. And then we finally tell GPT this. Answer the question below in a conversational tone, and then we pass it the prompt, which is the question that we were told earlier. And then we're simply rephrasing that prompt that we were giving. We're just resaving it as this template. Okay, so to test this out, we're going to reconnect everything back. We're going to connect this to respond. We're going to deploy. So we should get the information from Telegram. It's going to set the property, which is currently the prompt. That's going to get to entities. We're going to grab all the entities. We're going to filter out and create a very specific list. We're going to create a template and rename that property of prompt with the template that we want. We're going to ask OpenAI the question. We're going to get the response back, and that response is going to be sent back to Telegram, and then we can also see it in the debugger as well. Let's try it out. For good measure, I'm going to put up the lights here so you can kind of see what's already on. This isn't all the lights that are active in the house, but this will still give you a good idea as to what's going on. All right, let's go. That is correct. Did it talk about the office light right? The desk light is on, and the office light left is on too as well. It didn't mention anything about the office light right. Let's also ask it one more time. Is there? Okay, great. So it rephrased itself. So it's doing it in a conversational way and it's able to answer the questions quite accurately. Dope, right? Our chatbot is able to answer questions, but it's unable to do anything about our smart home though. If I tell it to turn on my office light, nothing. We need to somehow give it the ability to do. However, this ability is kind of tricky, and there's a lot of problems that we'd have to solve in order to get it to work. But interestingly, the solution for this is quite comical in the end once I think about it. But as a chaperone, I'm going to give you guys a break for today. I think we already covered a lot of stuff already, and to cover the rest of that stuff is going to be quite a lot, and it's going to burn you out. It's going to burn me out. So, we'll just wait for the next video to do that. Speaking of Chaperone, I do have a surprise for all of you. In the description, there's a link to a page that highlights what we've discussed today and provides code to set up your nodes like what you see in this tutorial. for those of you who are unfamiliar with Node-RED, you may notice that this is not YAML. Instead, what Node-RED uses is basically JSON to create and set up nodes and automation. And importing these are super easy, so let me go through that really quick for you guys. So after copying the data from a page, you can go to Node-RED, click on the menu, go to Import. With the clipboard tab selected, paste the JSON in, and you can choose to import into an existing flow. Flows are like boards, like how you see here, or you can choose to import it into a new flow. I suggest using a new flow if you want to keep things kind of separate and neat. Now click import, and you're done. If you see this message pop up, it means that you already have nodes that are the same or something that exists that's similar. Simply just import that copy into a new one and you should be fine. I'm not sure what happens if you have duplicates, but it's just letting you know that there are duplicates. I'll try to keep this page updated as I discover new automations and learn new tricks. In the next video, I'm gonna enhance the chatbot even further with some really clever GPT tricks. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe this video. It helps out this channel a lot and it helps me to know what you like, so touch that button. Class dismissed.